Recording live from Glory Hole Studios in Chicago and beyond. This is Cognitive Dissonance. Every episode we blast anyone who gets in our way. We bring critical thinking, skepticism, and irreverence to any topic that makes the news, makes it big, or makes us mad. It's skeptical, it's political, and there is no welcome mat. Today is Thursday, October the 20th. 2 days.
It's not
Cecil.
Thursday, it's Monday, Tom.
It's Monday. It's October the 20th.
The other day on our show, you said it was August.
Cecil, does time matter?
I know, bro.
Does time matter?
Time is a fucking flat circle at this point.
You know,
are you kidding me?
How about this?
Yeah.
That's what time it is.
Hey, there is no welcome at. There's also, Tom, no kings. So
there are no kings.
That happened this last weekend. Huge turnouts all across the United States. We're recording early because I am flying to QED. So this show will be put out for patrons before then, but after then will be like Monday, QED will be over. So next week when this releases, QED will be over. Oftentimes when we record very quickly after we've had a previous show, there's almost nothing to talk about. Unlike in normal administrations. In the Trump administration, we have a full plate of notes we have to talk about. We have so many stories. I want to mention before we get started that we're going to have Dr. Daryl Ray, founder of Recovering from Religion and the Secular Therapy Project. He's going to be joining us later to talk about Vulgarity for Charity, which is coming up starting next month. But we want to start out to talk about No Kings, because I had an opportunity to go to the No Kings protest. I went to downtown Chicago's protest that was at Grant Park. It was at one of the fields nearby. It's essentially the band shell they do at the Jazz Fest at and other places. It's a giant area where they congregated to start. And so they started there. I was terrified because we're rolling in, right? I come rolling in with a friend of ours, a lady friend of ours, and then my wife and myself, right? So we're driving downtown and I get off of the interstate and I'm like, holy shit, there's just people on the side of the road just walking towards Grant Park and the sidewalks are full of people. And so I was like, holy shit, am I going to get a spot down here? It starts slowing up to the point where I'm turning to where I'm going to go. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to get a spot. And I was lucky enough to get a spot in a paid lot. I guess people didn't want to have to pay. They're like, I'm not going to pay to go there. Like, what the hell? We get out, we start walking. And it is like normally, like when you're downtown and you see big stuff like Lollapalooza or, you know, these other big things that are happening, genuinely, it's packed. It's almost always packed. This was more packed than I've ever seen it ever. Like, and I lived downtown for, 20 years. So I've seen the most people I've ever seen downtown was this last weekend. We start walking toward it. We get to the band shell and the entire city block is standing room only on this band shell. Like there's all the green.
That's fucking amazing.
Is all standing room only, right? There's drone shots of it. When you see the drone shots, you're just blown away by how many people are there. They come out, they start speaking. It was Brandon Johnson. It was some of our representatives. They did some multilingual stuff. So there was people doing bilingual speeches. So they would say a little in English, they'd say a little in Spanish. There was just this huge turnout of people. Pritzker spoke at the end. Then we all they're like, okay, now we're going to march. Now I saw tons of people, didn't see a single protester, like counter protester. And I figured if there was going to be, a counter protester there was going to be some real problems. There wasn't a single one. Nobody's going to come down to Chicago and try to harass people. So we were there. We walk over to the street. We're getting ready to march. They're like, okay, everybody, we're going to start marching. We stood on the side of that road waiting for the crush to finally move forward. It took us 45 minutes to get a half a block.
Holy shit.
Then we finally start moving, and it was just as much of a crush walking down the street. We turn, and the city of Chicago has a thing called the Loop, and the Loop is where the train runs, essentially, around the Loop of the Chicago. That's where the business district is. And we essentially walked all around the downtown area. The entire line of people went, and if you're from Chicago, you know these streets. If you're not, it's irrelevant. But it basically went from Jackson to Wacker up to, I think, Wells or Franklin, and then Franklin back to Jackson and then Jackson down. So it's essentially in circles, the entire loop with people were marching. That's how many people were walking around. It was insanity down there. There was just tons of people really excited to be there. And there was, I didn't see any like nothing broke out. Nobody was vandalizing anything. It's not this group of Antifa, like ne'er-do-wells or whatever they were trying to pass it off as an American hate rally or whatever. There were several chants of USA. Like people were like, there was a ton of American flags. I think the left is genuinely trying to recapture patriotism. They're trying to do their best to recapture it. And so it was great. There was so many people. If you get an opportunity to see the one in Chicago, the aerial footage is amazing. You can just see the pulse of the people coming out. It's just it's a never-ending stream of humans that are walking around. They're average. Some of the people said 100. Some other people said 200,000. There was so many people there, more than I've ever seen. And I've seen, like I said, I've seen Lollapalooza. I've seen when we won the World Series, when we won the Stanley Cup. I've seen these things and it wasn't as big. So huge amounts of people. And it was really great to see. And it was all over the nation too.
I saw, because I was excited and a little nervous for you, to be honest.
I was nervous too. I was worried because like you're down there and you're thinking, gosh, all somebody has to do is drive a car the wrong way or whatever it is, because there are ne'er-do-wells in the world that don't like people expressing their First Amendment rights.
Yeah, I was excited for it. I couldn't be there. I was excited for you. I was nervous for you. I was excited for I was watching on refreshing news feeds, and checking the news sources. I saw CBS. So I remember I texted you and I was like, oh, it looks like there were 75,000 people. And you're like, bro, there's a lot more than 75.
So many people.
That was the first report I saw.
Yeah.
I saw later in the day a report from CBS News saying 250,000 plus people.
Huge.
And that the protest in Chicago stretched for more than 2 miles.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just 2 miles of people just out there.
Yeah.
And you look at something like that and you cannot help but realize just how foundational and important all of the pieces of the First Amendment are.
Yeah.
Right? We get stuck, I think, a lot here when we talk about I have a right to free speech. And a lot of people seem to think the First Amendment sort of starts and stops there because that's the place where it intersects with your life the most frequently, right? In your day-to-day sort of existence. And there's all these free speech absolutists, right? If you're a free speech absolutist, you are probably further along the right-wing spectrum than you are center or left. Most of those people who call themselves free speech absolutists find themselves more often on the right than in the center or on the left. I find it really interesting how many of those people who are free speech absolutists are not also absolutist defenders of the press, which is also First Amendment,
right?
Or not also absolutist defenders of our right to peaceably assemble and redress our government for wrongs, right?
Absolutely.
Which is also in the First Amendment. I find that really telling about what their priorities are. When you pick and choose in that way, what you're saying is, I want to make sure that my voice eclipses your voice.
Exactly right. Exactly
That
right.
is the point of free speech absolutism.
Yeah.
It is not a deeply held ideological principle. It is a specifically targeted political angle to take in order to silence minority voices and amplify majority voices. That is what that's for. Because if they had really an ideological, patriotic standpoint, they would be every bit as excited about the No Kings protest, even if you didn't like what they were protesting. I look at something like this and I see this is a functioning democracy still. Right? Because what happened when you look at countries where there is not a functioning democracy? I'm thinking of the Arab Spring, and I'm thinking of the Syrian response to the Arab Spring. I'm thinking of things like Tiananmen Square. When democracy really falls, one of the first things to go is exactly the event you participated in.
Yeah.
And I know we've been really down on, hey, fascism is here. It is. But I don't think we are so far down that slippery slope that we are unable to recover. And I think a day like yesterday shows us that we still have our claws in.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's super fucking important.
Absolutely. You know, what's really impressive is, of course, people are going to show up to big cities like I did, right? I went to Chicago. But there was so many different places all across the country that had little tiny and sometimes very large for the place that they're at protests, right? So sure, there's hundreds of thousands of people that go to Chicago and Boston and New York and LA and, these big cities all across the country. But you know what? Some tiny little places all around Illinois had pop-ups. So there's a ton of these No Kings protests all over Illinois. And they started popping up. I felt a little weird going to some of these that were out in, when I was going to go to Chicago. I felt, I don't know, man, I'm not sure. Like I was a little nervous. I couldn't imagine how nervous people in little tiny red states, little tiny red cities with these protests. There was 1, 2, 3 people. Some of our listeners were sending images of these smaller protests in deep red areas where people are deep and red. And I know for sure there were counter protesters there. Those people had some real courage to get out there and stand there because they know the hostility that there's going to be hostility against them. There are going to be people who are going to go up against them and who are going to try to yell at them and try to, flip them off and scream at them or maybe come confront them. And that takes a lot of courage to get out there. So kudos to all the people who came out, not just the people who in like big areas of the country were out, but people in small little areas of the country showing that this sort of reach it permeated the entirety of the American of all of America. There was protests everywhere. So it was amazing to see. And I saw the response that I saw mostly was, this is a hate America rally. That was their talking point. The Republicans came on all the different networks that they could. They hate the media, but they sure as hell spread their message on the media all the time. Right? They hate the media. The media is biased, but the media sure as shits their opinion out constantly. And so they'll come on CNN and they'll come on all these other places and they all had their rhetoric down. It was a hate America rally. You're going to come out to a hate America rally. I saw none of that. What I saw was, people celebrating diversity, people celebrating that this nation was built up by immigrants and that continues to be sustained by immigrants. I saw people who were welcoming others. Like that's all what America's about. And so this idea that they came out with, and then the other thing is the response afterwards is that I've seen online and from other places is, well, we didn't have a king before and you went out there and protested. We don't have a king now. I guess it worked. And that whole flippant comment,
so stupid.
Basically, what it does is it ignores the fact that there has been progressive executive overreach in so many different places, stifling of speech. Look at how they're weaponizing different departments of the government to go after free speech when it comes to, the FCC going after people and saying that certain people should be taken off the air, suing different places and telling people that they can't come to the press circle, excluding press from the press circle, sending your armed and federalized troops to different places in the country to stifle speech outside of immigration centers. Those are ways in which someone is overreaching in a way that a king would. So I know your tiny little brains can't put this together, or you're just stubborn enough where you don't want to put it together. But that's a real overreach of power, and that is something that a dictator would do or a king would do, and that's not something we accept here in the United States. So that's all those comments and all that bullshit. It's like you are genuinely either an unthinking person or you're stubbornly not paying attention to what's happening.
Yeah, and I think the answer is ¿por qué no los dos? Why not both? Right?
Yeah, right. No, you're not wrong.
Like a couple of things strike me about that, and like the first, like you said, is the willful ignorance. I mean, what we have seen over time, as you point out, is as the unitary executive theory, which first came about during the George W. Bush era, as the unitary executive theory has strengthened and taken hold over the last 20 years, that has consolidated more and more power into the executive branch. And I think this is a protest, not just against Trump, although largely against Trump, but also against the idea that, hey, this cannot be allowed to continue. Yeah. This constant upward push of power into the hands of any one person, regardless of whether that person is elected every 4 or 8 years or not. There should be a system of checks and balances. There should be 3 three chambers or three, branches of government that help to sort of check and balance each other. Any erosion of that is a consolidation of power into an executive that is king-like.
Yes.
The idea that these guys are like, well, it's not exactly a king. It's like, well, have you ever heard of a fucking metaphor? Like, you're being impossibly stupid. The other thing I want to point out is that across the nation, it was millions of people.
Yeah, it was millions.
Millions of people. And I've looked for it, essentially entirely peaceful.
Yeah.
No meaningful vandalism, violence, arrests. Like, it was just wildly peaceful. I was thinking about right-wing protests and rallies, right? The most recent one of any size I can remember was January 6th.
Yeah.
You'd be hard pressed to, even if you don't believe that was an insurrection, which you're crazy, it was. But even if you don't believe that was an insurrection, you would be hard pressed to say that that was a peaceful demonstration.
Sure.
Right? Patriotic in nature. And then, Cecil, I was also thinking too of when you and I very first started this show. We were just wee baby podcasters with nary a gray hair upon our heads. Nearly 20 years ago. And there were the Tea Party rallies that were taking place to protest a lot of Obama's policies and Obama's agenda.
Color.
And color. Well, but that's the thing I was going to point out. I remember you and I being incredibly critical of the Tea Party rallies. But what were we critical of? We were not critical of, hey, you guys shouldn't be out here gathering together to protest. We're like, yeah, you should be. But the problem is you've got a bunch of racist caricatures and signs, like objectively racist, like Obama as a monkey.
You're hanging Obama in effigy.
Right.
Like when you hang a black dummy.
Yep.
There is a lot of baggage behind that, folks. It's not it's not like that just appeared out of nowhere. It's not like that doesn't have a giant long history in the United States. Dude. Where people hid their face under a big pointy hat. It's not like that doesn't have a big long history in the United States.
Yeah. It's just so absolutely incredible that, like, when the right has I think of like a Charleston. The Unite the Right rally. The Unite the Right rally. Like, what was that all about? These are different. Like, they're qualitatively different. They just are. Interestingly, too, they're also quantitatively different. Yeah. There are not millions of people on the right. When we feel on the left, I think, when we feel as progressives, and we feel even if we're center right, that we are, just getting curb stomped in this political moment, because we are, and in many ways. Like, take a look at something like the No Kings rallies. I think they're inspiring.
Yeah.
I think they show us, hey, we do have power. We do have force. I think they also show the politicians that answer to us a lot. Yeah. Right? They show like, hey, we're fucking out here. And there's some shit we want.
There was at this one in Chicago, you had Pritzker, who's the current governor. You had Durbin, who's our senator. You had 2 or 3 of the representatives, House representative people who represent Chicago were there. So it's not like there wasn't anybody there who had some political pull. Like, there was a lot of people with some really powerful, they're powerful political entities. And I think, there's a story in the notes here. It's Democrats at No Kings rally to protest Trump, but many say they're also unhappy with their own party. And this whole story, this whole article essentially says, look, 1, let new blood in there. Stop it with this old guard stuff. Let's flush out some of that stuff. Stand up to Trump. Don't let him push you around. And let's embrace a populist message and not a capitalist corporatist message. And I think all that stuff is absolutely the lifeblood, and what could rejuvenate a left on this side of the country is to get rid of those corporate interests, because you pointed out really, I think astutely, and this was a while ago, you don't have them anymore, man. They're not with you anymore. They've all fucking tossed their fucking chips in with Trump. So they weren't with you ever. They were only with you in the sense that if you won, you might give them something. Well, guess what? They're with the other guy now, and they will not jump ship midterm. They dare not jump ship midterm. So you cannot appeal to the corporate interests in this country during the midterms. It will not work, because guess what? They don't give a fuck about you.
That's right.
They don't care about you. They don't care about anything except for profits. So do not go after that. Instead, go after the populist message as deep as you can. Throw that shit out. Now, I understand that fucking corporations help win elections in this country because of fucking Citizens United, right? We fucked ourselves with a terrible fucking Supreme Court decision, and we can't do anything about it. But man, I'll tell you what, if we can get rid of them in the midterms, you can get rid of them in the fucking general election in 4 years. You could just keep doing it over and over. Just fucking get rid of them because they're just doing everything they can to tear this country apart.
And for once, I wish a guy would take a dump on my chest.
That is appalling. That really upsets me. Can't believe nobody's ever taken a dump on your chest.
Will you be that guy?
It would be an honor and a privilege.
Did you see Trump's video, Tim? The little video that him and JD Vance put out a separate one. JD Vance and Trump both put out AI slop videos. I'm not going to show the videos because we don't want to share AI slop. But essentially, the JD Vance one shows Trump putting a crown on and then pulling out a sword as a king. And then a bunch of Democrats, they weaved in a bunch of Democrats when they were doing something with things around their neck, but essentially it showed a bunch of Democrats essentially bowing down to Trump. Then Trump releases one the day after the No Kings rally, and there's a jet that says King Trump. I think it's got the fucking Top Gun music on it. He gets in it. He's got a tiny little mask on. It doesn't fit anywhere. It doesn't fit over his nose. It looks hilarious. And then he flies his King Trump jet over the No Kings protest and drops shit on them from above. So Trump shits on his constituency, right? Like everybody is his constituency, essentially. Like we all are the people who he answers to, but he only answers to people. He doesn't even answer those people, but he pretends he answers to people who like him, and he hates all the people who don't. So he shit on Americans in this video, and it was released on his Truth Social feed. And here's what I want people to remember. It made him so mad, and it made JD Vance so mad that Trump and JD Vance had to go rage type into Sora or whatever their anger so they could produce a video to try to trigger other people. And here's the thing, man, it's not working. Dude, I know you're mad. You're mad, bro. And it's hilarious.
Yeah, man. And like, I look at something like this and I'm like, okay, man, this is what I expect from the troll in chief.
Yep.
This is it. I would expect the same thing from a like petulant 13-year-old.
Yeah. This is a Nick Fuentes thing.
Yeah, this doesn't feel, when I look at something like this is not here to say like, oh, what a clever retort. What are you kidding me? This is somebody who obviously has never cared about being a president for all of America, right? This is a guy who's in it for himself, is willing to literally shit on his opponents, right? Has no interest in sort of uniting people, has no interest in drawing America together. Because his vision of America doesn't include you. That's the thing. Like, that's the difference. When you listen to the speeches and look at the actions and shit on them all you want, but from the center left Democrats, their vision of America likely includes you, right? Maybe it's not as inclusive as it should be. It is probably not. It is probably not as progressive as it needs to be to answer the most pressing questions of the day. But does their vision of who is American, does it include you?
Yeah.
Trump's very much does not, right? Intentionally, specifically, structurally, economically, it does not include you. It never was meant to include you. So he's just the troll in chief. Right. That's what this is. This is the inevitable consequence of moving away from like an insistence on seriousness when it comes to our political leaders and a diving into and embracing of entertainment and politics and the conflation of entertainment and politics.
It's a team.
It's not a great one, you know?
Yeah.
Like Donald Trump answers to only one thing, and that's the fucking bond market. Like, that's all he answers to. You see him like the bond market does something, he fucking scales back his tariffs. You know, that's who he answers to.
Yeah.
That's it. He's not answering to the people. He's not answering to the other people on the right. He doesn't care what Marjorie Taylor Greene has to say. He's not answering to the people in the center or on the left. He doesn't care. He's never trying to govern those people. What he's trying to do is enrich himself and his friends. That's all he's trying to do. Yeah. That's all he's ever been trying to do. I also want to address real quick, we got an email from somebody saying, hey, you guys are really denigrating AI slop, and it makes you kind of come across as old. And like you recognize that AI and the use of AI video and stuff is a means for people to express themselves. And maybe you should embrace this as just another artistic medium that people can use to express themselves. And while I think that that is probably an impulse that is understandable, I think the difference here is that the ability to mess with the tools of narrative reality creation is just an inherently bad thing. Like, I don't want to come across as a Luddite here. I know that I can often come across that way. But when I look at stuff like this AI slop, and nobody believes that this is true, but this didn't exist 6 months or a year or 2 or 3 or 5 ago. And in a year and 2 and 3 and 5 forward, this is likely to get better and better and better and better in ways that we won't be able to see the weirdness of and like pick out the uncanny valley of.
It's already starting to get really difficult.
And that is not good for us as a society. I was thinking about this a lot when I saw that email because I really questioned myself. I thought, am I just being too reactionary? And I don't want to be. I want to give myself moments of pause because I do have ideas about this stuff. But I really, truly don't think that that's the case here. I think that, like, if I were trying to create a tool that allowed certain people in power to control the narrative around what's true and not true, one of the things I would do is make sure that you enjoyed it. Because if you enjoy it at the ground level, you're going to fight for me to keep it, right? I think it was a very savvy move to take something like AI and make it available to the general public and not keep it as a tool for corporations and governments. Because if I give it to you and you like it and it's fun, then you are not going to say, hey, that is not good for the world because you like it. So I actually think that there is an intentionality to building really dangerous and powerful technologies in ways that appeal to you personally so that you will excuse how they are used politically and how they are used technologically and by oligarchical power brokers. I think that like we should take a step back and say, hey, the fact that I like something actually is not relevant here. Vegetarians do a great job of this, right? So as a corollary, vegetarians oftentimes will say, hey, I love meat. Like you talk to Eli Bosnick, he loves bacon, but he has an issue, he has a moral stance on this that says, hey, but I think it's actually bad for the world. And so I don't engage in this. And I think that like we have with these technologies, with AI technologies, we've been sold, man. We bought it. They did a good job. They gave it to us cheap and for free and then for cheap. And they made us have a lot of fun with it. And everybody's having a good time. And so nobody is saying, hey, maybe we should stop the party. It's exactly what I would do if I was trying to take over. Honestly, it's the thing that you would do because now you on the ground will defend it.
Yeah. I think too that there's just no oversight at all on any of this stuff, right? So very little oversight on the internet itself, right. Very little oversight on social media and how we connect to people, very little oversight on AI and how that is going to be implemented in these different arenas. All that stuff, what it really needs is it needs to have somebody who's overlooking and overseeing it and saying, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, and be able to objectively and without a party affiliation, without any kind of political leanings, without all that stuff, to have a nonpartisan type of group that can look at this sort of thing and say, this is objectively bad for us. That's something that's super useful and should be useful. And I know that there's going to be free speech people out there who will be like, well, that's a ministry of truth or whatever else you want to say. But look, having the fucking fire hose of this stuff, we're already seeing drinking from the fire hose of this isn't great for us, right? We're already seeing there's a whole subreddit of people where they post AI videos asking, is this AI? I can't even tell anymore. right? So there's a whole subreddit of that. And some of those, I'll go on that subreddit and I'll be like, man, I don't know. I actually don't know. I don't know. I can't be sure. Some of them I can tell. Some of them you're like, oh, that's clearly AI. But then there's other ones you're not so sure. And so, like Tom suggests, that creation of reality is a very difficult and dangerous thing that we just put in everyone's hands. That's like, I mean, I understand we put dangerous things in people's hands. We're the gun culture. So we already know we already bad at it. So we're just going to be bad at this too. Someone also suggested too, they said, hey, like you guys were talking about using AI and now you're talking about like how difficult and bad AI is. Cause we talked about how you were trying to make an image. You were talking about making an image. And the thing is like, you've got to understand how it works in order to know whether or not it's good or not, right? Like you've got to work with it within parameters, see how far it goes with you because you're worried about how far other people are pushing it. If we don't know anything about it, then we're just yelling at a cloud. You've got to know about it too. So you got to read about it. You got to try to use it on occasion just so you can at least see how it works. Because if you don't know, then you're just talking out your ass. You don't know anything about it.
Yeah, that's exactly like one of the criticisms that I've had. People, when I've talked with other people about this, I'm like, have you even used it? And I was like, well, yes, I have. I have even used it.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to be able to say, yeah, I have an intimacy and a familiarity with this in order to say, before I became a vocal critic of social media back in like 2015, 2016, I had been on Facebook for 10 years. Right. So it's not like I was like coming at this from another angle where I didn't have any day-to-day familiarity with it. I think you have to have familiarity in order to say like, hey, this is the thing I'm actually criticizing. That's exactly right.
Okay, I'm going to divide it. There's 1 for you, 1 for me. 2 for you, 1, 2 for me. 3 for you, 1, 2, 3 for me. 4 for you, 1, 2, 3, 4 for me.
Wait a minute, how are you counting? 1 for me, 4 for you. You don't count that way.
The story's from The Guardian. This is just an acceleration of other forces in Texas and elsewhere. North Carolina Republicans will redraw maps to gain extra seat in Congress. The state is the latest in the U.S., conducting mid-decade gerrymandering to favor one party before the midterms.
Nice. Well, this is going to be the escalation. This is what we're going to see. They're going to do it in another place, and then they might do it in another blue state now. So another blue state with a blue governor and a blue electorate that is supporting that governor is probably going to look out and say, okay, well, we got enough seats. We can redraw now because other places are doing it. The Supreme Court has to put a stop to this. The Supreme Court literally has to walk in and say, this can't be done. We're not doing this every 2 years that somebody gets elected or things change or the regime changes. Because guess what? What happens if there's a blue wave? These idiots don't realize. What happens if there's a blue wave? What happens if like genuinely Trump fucks up the country even worse than he has already? Let's presume that happens. Let's say he fucks the country up. Let's say the government doesn't open for a long time. Tons of people out of work. Everybody's at a food bank. Interest rates shoot through the roof. Inflation goes crazy. Let's just say all that stuff happens. And it's now the midterms, right? And there's a blue wave. And it's a blue wave in a lot of different places, even places that were purple places. Now what? Now what are you going to do? Now suddenly those places are going to be able to redistrict in the midterms. Oh shit, you redistrict and now you're fucking locked out. It's a terrible idea. We should definitely follow more stringent rules when it comes to this because the whim of the governments around there, we're clearly seeing the partisan workings and it's awful for us.
Yeah, I mean, we should, like, it's so crazy to me, Cecil, how self-evident most of the solutions are to fixing government, right? Like you want to just like tomorrow, you want to say, okay, well, I mean, gerrymandering is just patently an unfair process. We should have a law that says you can't do gerrymandering, right? That there should always be a nonpartisan committee who draws congressional maps.
Yeah.
Like gerrymandering should just be illegal, right? There obviously should be term limits in Congress, right? It is obvious that we should take certain types of money out of politics. These are not complicated solutions because they're not complicated questions.
Yeah.
Right? But we're not going to do them because the people who are in charge and people who are in power don't actually want these things. Yeah, the gerrymandering is just one more example. I think the worry that I have is that if they do this well, the ability for us to have a blue wave is nullified.
Oh, it's severely curtailed. And I think like they're going to win this because the House of Representatives represents more land than it does people. And it always has. It's always the land around And those few farmers and rural people, those are the ones who get their choice on who they want to be essentially running their state. And the blue people are in such a high concentration that you can't just be like, well, here's 100,000 and here's another 100,000 and here's another 100,000 and here's another 100,000. And those 400 or 500,000 people, they all get their own vote and they all live downtown and that's 4 votes. They don't do that. They're like, no, we're going to take a tiny sliver of the pie and then you get most of the state. And then we're going to take a tiny sliver of that pie and you're going to get most of the state. And then they outpower the blue areas of that area, that place. And the problem is that happens all over the country. So they're just gonna it's not like they're gonna threaten us with Oklahoma or something, or I'm trying to think of a full red state. Like like Alabama or something, right? Like what's the worst that's gonna happen? They might have one blue there and all the rest of them, like, what are you going to do? And so when I think the problem is in the deep red and deep blue states, we're going to have a real issue. But if they start to gerrymander and deeply gerrymander in these places, these purple states might flip. You got to nip that shit. You got to stop it. And the Supreme Court is too feckless to do that sort of thing.
Oh yeah. Because they want this. They're like, this plays into their worldview.
This is their worldview.
She's a grunt, Clara. They're bred in hatcheries. Cloned muscles, low intelligence, brute force.
This is the kind of shit that needs to happen. CBS News, judge to question feds on use of force, body camera mandate, and immigration enforcement in Chicago. Federal judge has said basically, hey, you're here, your body cameras are on. And they were like, yeah, we didn't turn them on. The federal judge is like, in case you didn't fucking hear me.
Yeah.
What I said was body cameras on, and I want to know why you're shooting that guy in the face with fucking pepper balls.
And they're saying you can't arrest people at immigration court. Like, you can't just go there and do that here. You're not allowed to do that. We're not letting you do that. And like, they did it. They just did it. And then they did the pepper ball stuff even after they were told not to. And they released tear gas into groups when they were told not to. And then they didn't turn their fucking body cameras on. And we fucking knew that they weren't going to do that. And then they get caught. Now they got to go in and they got to answer. The thing is if this has teeth and if this can push them to do the right thing, it's better for America. It's just better for America if we're watching them and curtailing their actions. It's just better for us and it's better for America. When I see, one of the things that occurred to me, Tom, when I was thinking about this is like, Trump has like no finesse on anything. Every single thing Trump does is brute force. Everything he does is try to like every problem is a fucking nail to that guy. Every single one. And so when I think about how he handles immigration, how does he handle immigration? There's no subtleness to it. There's no like working with other countries to see if there's some way to slow the immigration down. Can we help give them aid to help them, keep people at home? Can we help, make sure that those people feel safe where they're at? They can thrive where they are. No, none of that. It's just whoever comes in, we're going to brutally grab them, maybe send them to the wrong country, really fuck them up as much as possible, be dangerous when we go after them, et cetera. It's just a brute force answer, right? There's no finesse. There's no real thinking through it. It's just like, I see a nail and I hit it. The same thing when it comes to his economic policy. What's his economic policy? Well, everything is a fucking tariff. I'm gonna bully you. I'm gonna push you. I'm gonna fight with you. Look at how he had to deal with the thing in Gaza when he dealt with it's a threat. It's always brute force. And while brute force can solve a problem, right? Like, let's say you have a wall, a hole in your wall and you want to cover it with plaster. You can just fucking smash a fucking piece of plywood in there or smash.
I feel seen right now.
You can fucking do that, but it's not going to last or it's going to look like shit or it's not going to work. These are bad solutions. And he's not a bright person. And the only thing he does is brute force. And you can see it in the way in which he governs all the people that are underneath him, right? All the people that are in the executive branch also do brute force shit. That's all they do.
Yeah,
they don't have any subtlety. They don't. And look at how he's even trying to do the shutdown. It's all brute force. Come to me. I will do what I want. You don't get to say. You don't get to. There's no compromise. There's no subtleness. There's no politics. It's literally do what I want or the government stays closed. It's all the same thing with him. It's so easy to predict what he's going to do because all you have to do is look for the brute force solution, and that's going to be how he does it.
And it's so funny because this is a guy who wrote a book proclaiming that deal making was a kind of art.
Right?
Right? That there was a sort of like, this like fucking flow state, like, it's an art when you make a deal. And instead it's just like, you got to do what I say or I'll make terrible things happen.
That's pretty much
not,
it.
Like, what the fuck? That's your whole strategy, is just the willingness to destroy, the willingness to burn, the willingness to, go fucking full, like, ham on every single thing that you do. And, like, if you do that enough, you will rack up some wins.
Sure.
Right? So, like, if I go into the gym and I'm just like, yeah, what's my strategy? Well, I have actually a pretty, well thought out progressive overload plan with primary and accessory lifts. Well, I could do that, or I could just fucking work as hard as possible all the time. And sure, the risk for injury is really high, but I'm probably going to make some gains, right? It's not the most efficient way to get things done. It does have damage that is going to happen if you do that, but you're going to win here and there too. I look at something like this and I think this is what we need our federal judges to do. This is the check and balance system.
Is it.
This is what is required of our judiciary. I'm not convinced that the Supreme Court will support this kind of stuff, unfortunately, but we should make them continue to contend with it. We should make them continue to get on the books and stand in front of people and say, you know what? I am stripping yet one more power away from the people. I am taking one more power away from states. I am taking one more power away from accountability. There is no world. I don't care where you are on the political spectrum. I really mean this. I do not care where you're at on the political spectrum at all. There is no world where you should not want body cams on all law enforcement all the time. I'm talking from fucking TSA all the way to the fucking anybody short of like undercover agents, right? If you are not undercover, you should be wearing a fucking body camera. That's it. Law enforcement should be cammed up all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
No exceptions.
For sure.
No exceptions at all. I understand that some of that footage may end up becoming sensitive and you might have to FOIA it or otherwise get classified. Cool, fine, awesome. But the camera footage should still exist.
Yeah.
These guys have so much physical power of violence over our citizenry. And if we don't say you are accountable to someone, they are accountable to nobody. They're already walking around with qualified immunity. It's pretty much unqualified if we don't check and we don't check their power.
Right? Exactly.
So like fucking body cams on everybody. I don't understand how the right, who for the longest time have been the guys who looked at something like Ruby Ridge, right? Ruby Ridge, if you were on the right, Ruby Ridge was a rallying cry that said, hey, we should be afraid of federal law enforcement overreach into the actions of private citizens, right? Well, you can argue the merits of that one way or the other, but that was a rallying cry for the right. It motivated things like Waco. It motivated, right-wing militia groups. The right-wingers for the longest time have been the ones who've been telling us, be more afraid of the police at the federal level.
Yeah.
People of color on the ground have been telling everybody for fucking centuries, be afraid of the police. And we didn't listen, right? We didn't fucking listen.
Yeah.
So we actually all agree on this.
Yeah.
That's what's so crazy. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, but they're enforcing my mandate.
Yeah.
They're enforcing the bigotry I want to ensconce into the American ideal. So like, I actually don't want their cameras on. I want them to be able to fucking beat the shit out of somebody.
Yeah. I mean, like we shouldn't think that someone should be able to shoot pepper ball sprays at just regular people just standing there, right? Not breaking the law, standing there, or peaceful protesting. There's this idea that somehow these people look at this conflict and they somehow identify with the oppressor here, who is literally shooting fucking pepper ball spray into a priest's eyes because they feel somehow slighted from the roof, right? You're siding with that guy who's an oppressor, someone who is attacking an American citizen under the authority of the federal government. Like this is a huge overreach, something that we should all be up in arms about. Because here's the thing, I don't want them to shoot a fucking right-wing protester in the face if he's out there with his MAGA hat and he's saying like praise Charlie Kirk or whatever sign he has. I don't want some left-wing guy on top of a roof shooting him in the face with a pepper ball gun.
Absolutely
not. That's a
not.
fucking horrendous overreach, and I would want that person fired. Don't you want the same thing? Like, here's the thing, man. We can all peacefully protest. If the government reaches out and starts smacking one of us, we all need to stand up and say that's a bad thing.
Johnny.
4 weeks.
20 papers, that's $2 plus tip.
Gee, Johnny, I don't have a dime. Sorry.
Didn't ask for a dime. $2.
Well, it's funny. See, my mom had to leave early to take my brother to school and my dad to work because...
$2. Cash.
New York Times. Cecil, you had some things to say about this when I sent this story from. This is from the New York Times. George Soros is released after Trump commutes
George Santos.
George Soros
wasn't arrested.
No, George Soros is who funded that great big rally in Chicago.
George Soros was busy all weekend. He didn't write a bunch of checks, Tom. Come on.
Yeah, did you get your Soros check, Cecil?
I paid for myself. Who's going to pay for my gas and parking? Come on.
I thought it was the Jewish mafia. I thought they paid for all that stuff.
I had to buy my own fucking poster board and write my Star Wars sign on it.
You got... All right, let's try that again. George Santos is released after Trump commutes his sentence. Obviously, if George Soros were arrested, Trump would not let him out. George Santos' lawyer said the disgraced former congressman was freed from a New Jersey prison around 10 p.m. on Friday. He served less than 3 months of his fraud conviction. He was convicted of fraud, and he was sentenced to more than 80 months in prison. He served less than 3. And Trump was basically like, yeah, it wasn't that bad. He was kind of a rogue. He was a wacky.
He didn't pardon him. He commuted his sentence. There's a difference.
Yeah.
And I think like the other thing that we have to understand is that this guy literally had people donate to his party, and then he just took those fucking credit cards and was like, hey, guess what I can do? And then he went all hog and fucking used people's credit cards, and he stole money. Like he's a literal thief. Like it was proven in court. He's a literal thief. He is a thief stealing political people who contributed to his political campaign. He stole their money.
Not a thief of hearts, by the way.
Yeah, no, definitively not a thief of hearts. But he is just a liar and a thief. And here's the thing we have to remember too. Let's go in the Wayback Machine to remember that it was the Republicans and the Democrats that kicked him out of Congress, right? Yeah. It was not a single group that said, hey, this guy should go. It was everybody was like, get this fucking guy out of here. So it's not like he had some sort of group of people or this was a really partisan thing. Somebody went after him and they weaponized something. No, man, this guy was an awful person. A bunch of people on both sides of the aisle said this guy was an awful person. And so they threw him in jail. They tried him. They threw him in jail. He lost his fucking court case. And then he was in jail. And Trump this weekend, and here's what I think happened. This is, clearly I have no way to prove this, but often when really bad stories hit the news, what you'll see Trump do is do something that is clearly a way to inflame the other side so he could take any kind of spotlight away and do what Bannon said, which is flood the zone, right? So what Trump will do is try to flood the zone when something big hits. This Nazi young Republican thing was not going to go away quietly.
No.
This was a terrible, awful thing that happened. Tons of people, tons of young leaders in their party were shown as hateful, awful, authoritarian Nazis, right? These are people who are sending awful shit, praising Hitler, talking about rape. These are just terrible, terrible people. And so that shit wasn't going to go away. It wasn't going to leave the headlines. People were going to continue to talk about it. So what do? You flood the zone. You give people something else to talk about. And so something else to talk about literally just shows you flexing nuts. That's all it is I'm flexing. I'm showing people how powerful I am. And I'm silencing them because what I'm doing is I'm taking their attention away from these Nazis and these shitty people that infest my fucking party. And instead, I'm sending their eyeballs over to something like this, which should enrage them, but it's nothing they can do because it's within my power to do it. And go fuck yourself. How's that?
Yeah, man. I think that's, it's so funny because I will admit I did not immediately catch that is almost certainly the strategy. I saw it and I was like, God damn it, this fucking guy, because like,
yeah, sure, because it makes me mad.
Because I get caught up in the bullshit, and like, shame on me for getting caught up in the bullshit. Genuinely, shame on me for getting caught up in the bullshit, because you're exactly right. If you're Trump, what a great thing to do, right? There's no stakes for him in doing it. What does he have to lose? Like people who are going to support Trump, they literally support him no matter what he does. He's shooting fucking missiles at boats full of fucking people in the Caribbean Sea without any legal auspices to do so whatsoever. And he gets away with that. So what's releasing a Santo? Who cares? Like, let the guy. So there's no harm in it for him, but it gets people distracted. You're exactly right, man. It gets people talking about that. And now they're not talking about this. Now and so we've moved on. It's such an interesting tactic to say the way to distract from big scandals is to give them a new scandal.
Yeah,
because the human mind just wants novelty, right? We get bored. The human mind gets bored of the same thing. We'll chew on it like a dog with a bone if there's not something new, but if you hand me a new bone, I'm going to go to that one every time. It is such a distressingly effective strategy to move people away from Signalgate, right?
Sure.
Signalgate should be a big fucking deal. To move people away from like the Epstein stuff, to move people away from the
murder of the Congress people in Minnesota.
Yes, the murder of the Congress people in Minnesota, or, the extrajudicial killings of, people in the Caribbean Sea, or, any number of other scandals. Let's just move them away from that. Here, I'll give you a George. I'll throw this fucking Santos onto the fire. Here we go.
Yeah.
And so some fucking clown shoe ass motherfucker has been let out. There's really no harm in it for him. And everybody stopped paying attention.
Yep.
That's so smart. It's so fucking smart, man.
And I think too, one of the things too is, I wonder, and this is just Cecil has no idea if this is true, but I genuinely wonder if Trump was upset that other people were getting the limelight over him. I wonder if he was like, well, what is with these young Republicans? Fuck these guys. I'm the president. They shouldn't be in the news. I wonder if that had something. That could be something that has something to do with it too.
It could be. And also, I also think that from what Trump has said, he thought that the 7-year sentence was egregious because Santos's crimes were financial crimes. Well, never mind that. What was Trump convicted of? Financial crimes. So downplaying the seriousness of financial crimes is perfectly, sort of like creating a sort of public narrative that downplays the seriousness of financial crimes. It's so funny because if I walk into the Louvre, for example, this last weekend, and I break into the Louvre and I steal a bunch of jewels. I steal $1 million worth of jewels, right? I'm a big deal criminal. I'm dangerous. I'm going to be put away for a long time if I get caught. If I embezzle $1 million, I still stole money. I stole the same amount of money. But if I did it using a fucking keyboard instead of a glass cutter and a brick or whatever, I am somehow a different kind of criminal. I am a criminal that the world should be worried about less. And the impact is the same. Theft is fucking theft, man.
Sure. You're wearing a different collar.
Yeah.
That's the only difference. Yeah.
That's it.
I heard a story, and I can't confirm it, and I'm curious if you saw this too, that the leak came from, that Nazi leak from the texts, came from someone who was snubbed because they didn't get to take a picture with the president. That's what I heard.
Oh my God.
And I thought I saw a story and I cannot find it now. Yeah, it's a Daily Beast article. It says, Trump selfie snub triggered MAGA civil war that leaked racist Republican chat. A Donald Trump appointed official accused of leaking hundreds of racist private text messages sent by the youngest leaders of the party. Gavin Wax, the chief of staff of the Office of Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs, is facing backlash from his own allies after a bombshell Politico report revealed messages from the Telegram chat about this thing. Wax was the former president of the New York Young Republicans Club. He's under fire despite not being in the chat at all. Multiple sources with knowledge of the matter told the Daily Beast that the 31-year-old obtained and leaked the messages to settle a long-standing feud with Peter Guinta, the former chair of the New York Republican State Republican Club. Once friends, the two allegedly found themselves at odds over a photo opportunity with then presidential candidate Donald Trump at his campaign rally in Wildwood, New Jersey.
I fucking love how
that's so amazing if that's true.
So
if
good.
That's true. That's so amazing. Look, it's a Daily Beast. Who knows, right?
Knows?
Like Daily Beast is just like some guy said a thing. News. So I have no idea if that's true at all. But I will say this: like, if it is true, like if that thing is true, how fucking great and delicious is it that these people fucking hate each other? Like, how amazing is it that not only do they get the hate from all the people in the United States, they hate each other too, man.
So good, man. This shit is so fucking good. It wouldn't surprise me at all because, like, you see so many times the littlest, most petty fucking shit blows up this big deal stuff. Because at the end of the day, people are just people, man.
Yeah.
They're just like emotional, irrational, just people. It's so funny how oftentimes like low stakes stuff turns into big emotional reactions for everybody. Because again, we're all just fucking people.
Yeah.
That's all we are.
That's it, man.
We wake up and we're like, yeah, put my fucking pants on. Like, yeah, well, I'm full of fucking irrational biases.
Oh, God.
I'm
You would
just
love
made
to
out of
see, though,
shit.
somebody who's in power like that to be able to rein themselves in once in a while. It's fucking amazing.
So good.
So Vulgarity for Charity is going to kick off this upcoming November, and we are joined by Dr. Daryl Ray, founder of Recovering from Religion and the Secular Therapy Project. He's also the author of The God Virus and Sex and God. Dr. Daryl Ray, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Cecil.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be jumping into this Vulgarity for Charity. We're going to be trying to raise money for the Recovering for Religion Foundation. Can you tell me a little bit about sort of what that organization does from a sort of high level?
Yeah. Well, we started in 2009. We've been growing ever since. We've got over 500 trained volunteers, 200 active at any given time, especially right now. And we answer calls, we answer chats from literally anywhere on the planet. So you could chat in with us right now if you are watching us, and you could ask an agent what we do and why we do it. What we do is we help people deal with the consequences of leaving any religion. It could be a Hindu from India. It could be a Scientologist from California. We don't care. What we've learned in the 16 years of our existence is that the issues are common no matter what, because we're humans. We're dealing with the same kind of emotional responses to the loss of family and loss of a group, loss of culture, loss of community, and loss of faith, if you will. So that's our focus. We get a lot of people in distress because I'm losing my wife, I'm losing my husband because I'm become an atheist or whatever, or I've changed religions. It could be that simple. And that is a big task. There are literally billions, let me put a B on it, billions of people on this planet who were given a religion without their permission. And when they find that out, when they finally wake up at 19 years old or 90 years old, we really do have people in their 80s that have discovered it was all a charade. And it doesn't matter who you are, we're here to listen. And our volunteers are trained very, very carefully to just be non-judgmental. We're not here to convert or deconvert anybody. We're here to support them in their journey wherever they want to go, wherever their life goes, because it's not our life, it's their life. And it is a big transition, Cecil, to go from high control religions or a religion that says your sexuality is your enemy to being free of that ideology, but then trying to figure out what they do. We even had one recent chatter say, I left religion and I feel like I've been born again. But born again in a kind of a bad way because I'm innocent. I'm naive. I don't even know how to balance my own checkbook. Yeah, I need to find out how to have relationships with the opposite sex because I was taught purity culture. So, it's really interesting what people don't know about the real world because they were told the secular world is your enemy. So they come to us saying, what do I do? They call us and say, what do I do? And we can give them resources. We have an enormous resource library that's vetted to be secular, to be scientifically valid, and we put a lot of pride in the support that we've generated, especially through our training for our volunteers and our resources page. And the resources page is open to anybody. Everything we do, by the way, Cecil, is free. We don't charge a dime for any of our services. Our volunteers give hundreds, some even thousands of hours helping people, and we don't charge anything for it. So that's why we're entirely dependent upon donors to make these services work. Our secular therapy project is also free, but the therapists within the project charge, of course. They're professionals. But the service of helping you find a therapist that's truly secular and won't bring their religion into their practice is a free service from us. And we're now in 11 countries. Secular therapy project, 11 countries. We have 1,047 therapists that have been vetted by us to be fully secular and evidence-based and licensed. They have to meet those three criteria or they can't get into our process.
Is religious therapy so common that people need to go out of their way to find a secular therapist?
I challenge you to go online just randomly and look at psychologists and try to tell me, are they religious or not? You cannot tell by their profile, unless sometimes you can if you dig really deep.
Sure.
But so many therapists will bring their religion. Sooner or later, their religion will influence their therapy, which is absolutely unethical. And it's against ethical rules of any professional organization, whether it's American Psychologists or the American Counseling Association, American Family Counselors. Doesn't matter. You should not be bringing your religion in. And yet they still do. If I have time, I had a PhD psychologist, PhD, been in practice for 15 years, graduated from Notre Dame University. You don't get much better than that. And he applied, but he said he was Catholic in his application. And I said, well, okay, I'll consider that. I've got a scenario for you. You've got a 22-year-old woman who's coming to you for therapy. And in the fourth session of therapy, she tells you she's going to the abortion clinic tomorrow to get an abortion. And she wants some help relaxing as she tries to go through all these people that are yelling at her and calling her a murderer and everything. How would you help her? And I sent him that question. A week went by and he didn't respond. I sent it to him again. A week went by and he didn't respond.
Oh, no.
I sent it to him a third time. He finally responded with only this: I couldn't help her.
Wow.
In other words, a PhD from Notre Dame could not keep his religion out of his therapy. So that's why we're damn strict, partially because we met too many of those people early in our experience with the secular therapy project. People who said they can keep their religion out, but then when you ask them the hard questions, if they're honest, they say, no, I can't. So it's really important because you don't want somebody coming to you as a therapist. You don't want a client coming in as a client with religious trauma. And then the damn therapist re-traumatizes you by saying, well, do you think your depression is because you're an atheist? And they actually have done that. We've gotten that guy. Yep.
Wow.
Or do you think you'd have better mental health if you went back to church, even though you don't believe?
Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable.
It's very believable because it happens way too often with people who are licensed, people who have training in real universities and stuff.
I want to roll back to talk about the chat service that you provide and the helpline you provide. You were mentioning that people who leave, they sometimes have a real difficult time acclimating to regular life outside of their religion. It's difficult for them. So they're experiencing all different types of things. So you help them with the anxiety of being able to just sort of reintegrate into the world from sort of a sheltered, more protected life?
Well, they come to us with lots of questions. And that's the big question. How do I deal and live in this secular world that I'm now a member of because I've left my religion? And it's a hard transition. And our chat line agents, they're not therapists. Let me be clear about that. And they're not there to give therapy, but they are there to ask good questions. For example, one of the three main things that people come to us asking is, I still have a fear of hell. I'm an atheist. I don't even believe in God anymore. I've been out of the church for 5 years and I still wake up with night terrors about hell. So we ask questions. We don't tell them, well, that's a stupid thing. We don't say that. That helps no one. What we do say is a real interesting question. which hell are you afraid of?
Oh, nice.
Are you afraid of the Muslim hell or the Hindu hell or the Jehovah's Witness hell? Of course, they don't have hell in Jehovah's Witnesses, but and they haven't even thought about that. They didn't realize there's more than one hell. And as a result of that chat or that conversation, which may go on for an hour, going back and forth between the chat agent and us and the client, we will then give them resources. We'll say, well, you might want to look at this video on the history of hell and learn about where the whole concept came from. Oh, and did you know there is no hell in Judaism? There's never been a hell in Judaism. And yet, wouldn't you think that there should be a hell? Because that's where Christianity came from.
Right.
So we just ask questions. There's three things. People come to us with a fear of hell or afterlife, because different religions have different afterlife stuff. They come to us around sexuality issues. I'm gay, I'm bisexual, I'm pansexual, and yet my parents are throwing me out of the house when they found out. Or my wife's divorcing me, or my husband's, treating me badly now. And the third thing is community. We are super social creatures as humans, as primates, and we really, really need our tribe. But when the tribe rejects us, where do we go? Where do we find community? So a lot of times our chat line agents are here to help you find community. You could be from, Salt Lake City and you're a Mormon that's left Mormon religion. Well, where's the secular community in Salt Lake City? It's called Oasis. Yes, there's a secular
nice.
There's a secular community
so
in
you're
Salt Lake
connecting
City.
people to these secular communities all over the world then?
Literally all over the world. If somebody called us from London and said, and we do get lots of calls from England, and said, I'm looking for community, we'll say, well, the Sunday Assembly meets in London once a month, or the Skeptics in the Pub in Newcastle. And I'm naming those because I was just there a week ago. I spent a month touring the United Kingdom and speaking to these groups. And when somebody from Newcastle says, I can't find any groups, we can say, well, Dr. Ray was just at Newcastle 2 weeks ago speaking. You could join that group. It's called Skeptics in the Pub. And they're a great group, and they got all sorts of interesting programs going on. But most important, when they call us, we don't just send them to local groups. We try to send them to our support groups, because we have over 65 support groups literally around the planet. Some meet face-to-face, some meet like you and I are meeting right now on Zoom. So they can go to those groups and they can tell their story and then get it off their chest. And that's exactly how I started recovering from religion. Back in 2009, I just announced it on meetup.com and said, hey, if you're interested in talking about how religion hurt you or how it's helped when you left, come to this meeting. And 11 people showed up to that meeting in the back of an IHOP restaurant. And we met for almost 3 hours. And then the manager was kicking us out because he was closing it down. But I only knew one of those 11 people. The other 10 people were total strangers. And at the end of that 3 hours, people were hugging each other and crying and telling their stories. People said in that meeting, I've never said this to anybody in my life. I've never revealed how I truly feel. And at that moment, Cecil, this is April 20th, 2009, it hit me. This is a powerful need out in the real world. Nobody's listening to these people. They have nowhere to go. And so that's the start of Recovery from Religion, was a single support group. And now we have over 65, some face-to-face, like I said, but the vast majority are Zoom. So we've got an all-women's group for Europe. We've got an all-women's group for the United States. We've got an all-women's group for Australia. We got an all-men's group for North America. We have ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. We got ex-Catholics. We got all sorts of groups that can meet and support people and their journey. And every one of them is moderated by a very well-trained volunteer that knows the limits of what we can do. They're not there to be therapists. But I'll tell you, just attending a group and hearing that I'm not alone, which is our motto, you're not alone, that enough could be cathartic. That can be therapeutic. And after coming to 2 or 3 of these meetings that we hold, they say, well, where's another place I can go? And that's when we say, go to the Sunday Assembly in London or Newcastle, or or go to the Ethical Society in Baltimore. I mean, there are secular organizations all around the world that they never heard of. They've always been told that seculars are living horrible lives and they don't have any community and nobody loves them anymore. That sort of stuff.
That's a great resource, though, really, genuinely. As someone who runs a podcast, I've been running a podcast like this for, 15 years. It's an atheist skeptical podcast, and people will reach out and say, one of the things that I miss about religion is that community, that being able to connect with like minds constantly. And there's places, even in Chicago, there's a place, the Ethical Humanist Society of Chicago meets every Sunday, and they meet every Friday for board games. And there's all these ways in which they can find a new tribe. They can find a new group of people. And that's great that you offer this resource to help them do that.
Well, and we're the only ones in the whole planet that I know of. I mean, you guys obviously do it too, but we do it systematically.
Yeah,
we know where
amazing.
the support group, we know where the community is.
Yeah.
In almost anywhere on the planet. And we really put a lot of energy and time into finding those groups, putting them into our database, and having them ready at the fingertips of our agents. We have a robust database. We got a robust system, infrastructure, if you will. And what we've learned in the last few years is that we can support a wide range of activities outside. We're not a U.S. company. We're not a U.S. nonprofit. We are legally a U.S. nonprofit, but we're actually incorporated in Australia now as well. And we're expanding into Europe. So that's a big part of what we're doing over the next year or so, is really finding ways to penetrate where they don't even know about us. When I went through, I was on speaking tour. I gave 8 talks in 8 cities in the last 3 weeks. And I'd asked the group, how many of you have ever heard of Recovery from Religion before tonight? And frequently I'd get no more than 1 person or 2 people. Nobody else in the room heard of us. So we have this resources, but we have to connect to the people who need those resources. So that's why we're talking to you, partly because you're helping us raise funds to be able to expand those resources. Anyway, I could talk all day about all sorts of stuff, but I'll stop right there.
Here's what we hope, Daryl. We hope that people will donate, will be able to help get your message all over the globe, because it's so important for people who are walking away from religion to have some kind of support structure, whether that's resources or being able to be turned to the correct therapist that's near them, or be able to find a group, a community, a tribe, be able to walk away from religion without all that anxiety that comes with it, and be able to reintegrate into a regular secular society and walk away from that sort of baggage that they've had for so long. And so we hope that this Vulgarity for Charity will raise that money so that you guys can continue doing the things you do. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And we hope that we can really hit a nice high mark with this Vulgarity for Charity so you guys can continue your work all over the world.
Okay. Thank you. We really are honored and appreciate that you want to support us in this way.
All right, that's going to wrap it up for today. We want to thank, of course, Dr. Daryl Ray, founder of Recovering from Religion and the Secular Therapy Project. He's also the author of The God Virus and Sex and God. He joined us today talking about the upcoming Vulgarity for Charity and our work with Recovering from Religion. We're going to have all the details on how you can donate when we fully launch. We wanted people to know about the charity that we're going to be supporting. So we want to thank Daryl for coming on. We're going to have all those links and everything in the show notes to reach Recovering from Religion. But Vulgarity for Charity stuff we will cover on the next show. So our next show, we'll talk about exactly how to donate to Vulgarity for Charity, how all that stuff works. So stay tuned for that. And please, we want to encourage everybody when it starts, please, let's hit the ground running. There's only going to be 100 roasts this year. It's going to be the 50 people who donate the most money and 50 randomly chosen roasts from the ones we get. So we're asking people, dig in those pockets. The 50 biggest ones are going to go. They're going to be the ones we definitely pick. So please help out Recovering from Religion. Help people who are leaving religion. Find a community. Find therapy. Find people who are like-minded. It's so difficult to leave religion, man. And when you finally do, sometimes you feel lost, and these people are a guiding light for that. So please, We're going to try to help them as much as we can. All right. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We're going to be back on Monday, and we're going to leave you like we always do with the Skeptic's Creed.
Credulity is not a virtue. It's fortune cookie cutter mommy